Yes, I mean, the Commission has long looked at energy efficiency and clean energy as a really very much a valuable resource. As you know, our job as the economic regulator is to make sure that energy services are reliable, low cost, resilient, and secure. One of the things that is absolutely clear is that with technological changes, is that we can both make certain that we're meeting the economic needs of consumers and the environmental needs of the state in a way that's both economically and environmentally sustainable. So what we see as a Clean Energy Fund is an ability to invest in energy efficiency and clean energy that produces significant net benefits that we couldn't otherwise achieve, and that therefore helps us reduce rates and bills going forward rather than increase them.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding that NYPA and LIPA customers are going to be treated differently than the customers of other utilities in the state as far as the costs itemized on their utility bills. Can you explain how those are being handled and why they're being handled differently?
Well, again, NYPA and LIPA are not subject to the regulation of the Public Service Commission. LIPA actually has its own programs around energy efficiency and clean energy, and so they include those in their charges. In terms of NYPA, they have obviously a great deal of hydro and also have a great deal of commitments to renewable energy, and we're happy, I think, for NYPA would be happy to come in and talk to you about what they're doing in that regard.
Okay.
I will commit them to that.
Okay, I would appreciate that because this is very complex. Of all this, of the Clean Energy Fund and of REV, what is the legislature's role in the decision making? It seems that it's all in your hands at the Public Service Commission.
Well, the role of the Public Service Commission, again, is to set utility rates. And in making that determination, it's important for us to take a look at what is the best use of ratepayer funds. So consistent with that view, what we're looking at is that how do we make sure, as technology has evolved, when we take a look at energy efficiency, reduced cost of distributed generation and clean generation, that we're taking advantage of that so as we're meeting both our environmental and our economic needs. So to us, this has been a long part of our regulatory objective of really making sure that utility rates are set at a level that is essentially reasonably priced while providing reliable, clean, and cost-effective and resilient services.
Okay. Now, from the $5 billion being invested over 10 years, you're anticipating a $39 billion customer bill savings. What, if any, cost-benefit analysis has the PSC gone through in reaching that conclusion, and is that analysis available to us to review?
The NYSERDA, of course, proposed the $5 billion and in their petition identified how they are going to achieve the $39 billion in saving. I'm certainly that my colleague, Mr. Rhodes, will be able to talk to you in detail about how they put together their analysis. The Commission reviewed it. But most importantly, what the Commission has said in the Clean Energy Fund is that what we want NYSERDA to do moving forward is for each of these types of programs develop essentially what is an investment plan. Identify exactly how they're going to achieve the savings, how they're going to be measured, what the programs are going to be, and then we will monitor them. Because our role as a regulatory agency is to make sure that NYSERDA, just like utilities, are accountable for the targets that they set out and that we oversee that to make sure they're achieved. And if they're not being achieved, that the programs change to make sure we do achieve them.
So then, I guess in a nutshell, the cost-benefit analysis that's been done and reviewed by the PSC was done by NYSERDA. PSC's reviewed it and accepted it at this point?
The NYSERDA proposed it, the staff of the PSC reviewed it, they found that the analysis was reasonable. We certainly know from our own history with energy efficiency that investments in energy efficiency have produced significant value for consumers, and that as we go forward with the changes that NYSERDA is proposing to make, which were changes that the Commission asked them to do, we believe and we're very confident that we will not only meet them but exceed them. That's our expectation, and I think that these programs, as John Rhodes will tell you, are really a substantial and valuable change for the state.
Okay. Okay, and finally, my time is out again, but I'm going to get one last question in. With regards to your comments on the cost of natural gas being at all-time lows, what is in the plans, whether it's through REV or the Clean Energy Fund, of utilizing cleaner natural gas in the future of power generation in New York State?
Well, as you're aware, several years ago, the legislature passed a statute that required the commission, when we looked at coal plants, that we support repowering and that we consider not only the system benefits but also local economic benefits because of its importance to the state. And that is exactly the statute that we looked at when Dunkirk proposed repowering to us. So that is something that this legislature has already done. And with the governor's proposal that we eliminate coal, we also are encouraging the remaining coal plants to take a look at repowering, take advantage of these low natural gas prices.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions? Because you are doing double duty for Senator Griffo
For Mr.
also.
Griffo today.
If you had one more question. Or...
Well, I've got more than one, but
okay.
I mean I do recognize the goals of getting to clean energy. I think that in our foreseeable future, natural gas will play a role in that, and we shouldn't be ignoring what is now lower cost energy than anything else to replace that with higher cost energy, be it renewable or otherwise. Nuclear should be a strong part of that as well, based on the lack of emissions in that process. But I think a balanced and diversified portfolio of energy supplies is going to be much more secure for us going forward in New York than putting all of our eggs into one basket. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Gentleman Avenatti.
Before I would like to note that Senator Marchione, Kathy Marchione, has joined us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for giving somewhat clear explanations of very complex subjects. I'd like to, maybe I should start with President Rose. Where do you get your monies from? What's the funding source?
So as Chair Ziebelman explained, a significant and major funding source for us is ratepayer collections. And
that we call the systems energy charge?
So that's the systems benefit charge, that's the energy efficiency portfolio standard, that's the renewable portfolio standard, that's the technology and market development charge.
Now, are those all going to disappear and be now called something else, or are you going to call them the same thing?
They will be succeeded by a unitary single collection in the Clean Energy Fund.
Okay. So for those of us who are not as steeped in this as you are, let me see if I can understand this. So we're basically going to be reducing the amount of money that's collected on the bill and the amount of money that goes to you to do the things that you've been doing.
Correct.
Now, how much money have you set aside, for example, in the past, year by year, for the, you were talking about the solar, for a residential solar program. How much money was set aside for that 2015, 2014?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the set-aside aspect of that?
My understanding is you have a limit on how much you'll give out. So residential customers will apply for solar benefits, tax benefits, et cetera, but there's only a certain amount for that year. And when you hit that limit, you stop, you tell them to come back next year.
Right.
So how much did you set aside for 2014, 2015?
Let me get back to you with the details on that. I will just note that the example you asked about, which was solar, actually works in a different way than you're assuming.
Okay, well, what I'm concerned about is that while we are reducing ratepayer charges, we're also reducing revenue to the state of New York to do all of these great things that you're talking about. And so I am concerned that while it's off budget, NYSERDA will not have the money necessary, because we don't get a chance to ask you the questions and supervise. I am concerned that you won't have the monies available to do all of these great things. I mean, you're talking about a green bank, you're talking about the governor's programs, but we're going to be taking $1.5 billion out, and maybe more, because I'm not quite understanding all of the details here. You're moving Reggie funds in to substitute for monies that you would have had from ratepayers, et cetera, et cetera. It's very complex. I see all the shells going around. But in the end, it looks like we're going to have less money to spend on environmentally sound programs. Is that true?
We're going to get more done with the less money.
But we're going to have less money.
We're going to do a better job of achieving those energy goals and those environmentally goals.
But why can't we do it better and keep the amount the same?
So the other aspect of what we're doing, because this is all part of a plan to really think about how you integrate in clean energy into the mix. So it's no longer just simply has to be a government subsidy, because we can't really afford to get everything we want done just through ratepayers. Is really think about how you create markets. So for example, one of the areas that we're looking at in the renewable energy vision change is making sure that when we have customers who are able to use distributed resources like solar, like batteries, and they can take their consumption off of the grid at the times we want it to go off because prices are high,
right,
they get paid for it.
But aren't we better off, if I may, because I'm running out of time,
Yeah.
aren't we better off using grant programs which we can track rather than lowering at the front end where everybody gets the benefit, including those who are not helping in the ultimate goal?
What we're seeing in the market is there are many, many customers who want to do these things voluntarily. You know, people want clean energy. What we need to do is really reward them for that. And so part of the pieces of what we're looking at is the grid used to be built around this idea of the only thing we want is big power plants. Now we're saying no.
No, I understand what you're
want
saying,
both
but
of those.
I'm just suggesting that I would prefer to see the approach that you use the grant programs, just like the governor's trying to entice companies from out of state, by targeted grant programs, rather than giving this benefit to all consumers, all ratepayers, some of whom may actually be working contrary to your ultimate environmental goals. So that's the only thing I would put on the table, and suggest that maybe you reconsider reducing these rates, keep the rates at the level they're at, and keep doing the programs you're doing and add more once you become even more sufficient. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and I see I'm out of time, is that I'm understanding that these monies in the past used to be held by you, but a lot of these monies in the Clean Energy Fund are now going to be held by somebody else. Are utilities going to be holding these monies?
One of the one of
We
the
can
things
both
that
either answer, yeah.
one of the things that the commission did is rather than having the NYSERDA just hold those monies, is that the utilities will continue to collect those monies and put them in an interest-bearing account with the interest being returned to ratepayers, and then NYSERDA access the monies when in fact they need them. We felt that was a much more efficient use, and it gave the ratepayers the value of having the interest-bearing
What was wrong
accounts.
with you guys holding the money like you did before?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Marchione.
Sorry.
I have a couple of questions. The first is on solar energy. I know a lot of people who have had their home reviewed to see whether or not they could put solar panels on their roofs and to offset their bills. My question is, why are they only allowed to offset their own bills? If this is renewable energy and this is good for the environment, why are they not allowed to put solar energy that's excess capacity and be able to help our environment even more? It seems very counterproductive to me to allow residents to do this, but only allow them to offset their own bill.
So I'm going to answer more broadly, if I may. The Commission, I believe in May, passed essentially a shared solar ruling, which permits customers to take advantage of solar even if they don't themselves have a roof that is suitable for solar. So this is a way of a customer receiving the benefits of solar, including the bill offsetting benefits, mainly including the bill offsetting benefits from a solar installation that could be somewhere else, possibly on someone else's roof, but possibly on a field somewhere else. It provides the benefit that you are addressing. It also very meaningfully addresses the reality that the proportion of suitable for solar roofs in the state is somewhere in the 70% range, in the 20 to 25% range, so that 70 to 75% of roofs are not suitable because they're the wrong shape, the wrong angle, the wrong condition, they're tree shaded, they're occupied by the buildings are occupied by renters. And this is a really forceful decision by the governor and by the commission back in May that addresses that issue.
So what you've said, let me repeat so I make sure I've understood. The ruling was changed this summer that if I had a suitable roof that could give me 200% of what I pay, then that is now acceptable.
We have, if I can add to what Mr. Rhodes stated, to the extent that a customer puts on photovoltaic on their roof and they have excess energy, there is a compensation scheme from the utilities for if they're actually net exporting. But there are issues in terms of the concept of net metering is really a reduction against your total load. So if you size it that it's more and you're exporting, that creates a different set of issues for the grid. And so I would have to really think of, understand what the specifics of the case are. The other issue that we're dealing with, or the other opportunity we're looking at, is how do you create community solar type programs. And if you have a customer who really has property that allows for more of an export, how they can really benefit their neighbors and think about it as a community program rather than an individual program.
And I think that's where we should be going. I had my own roof reviewed. I can't have solar. I have too many trees on my lot. But my neighbor down the street could supply himself and myself and get the benefit for that. And currently, that's not happening. And I think if we really truly care about renewable energy, that needs to happen.
Yes.
Secondly, on broadband, I have many areas within my district, I'm in the 43rd district, that have great need to have broadband. Other parts of my district have real need for cell towers for safety. Sometimes you can't hear the ambulance calls. I mean, they get dropped. Is the broadband money placed in there also going to be used for cell towers?
It's not my understanding that it is going to be used for cell towers, but let me get back to you on that.
Please do, because it's very important. As it was going through, I kept promoting that this health and safety of our residents needs to be both, not in all areas, but in some of our areas, and not being able to hear an ambulance call is critical. So if not, please let me know that so I can start advocating again.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, because President Rhodes hasn't had the opportunity to give his remarks, we would like to do that. I know there's a lot of, cross relationships between the agency and the Public Service Commission. So at this point, I'd like to have you give your testimony, and then if the members have any other follow-up, we could go there.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon. Chair Young, Chair Farrell, members of the committee. I join in Audrey's thoughts on behalf of Senator Griffo, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I am John Rhodes, and I serve as President and CEO of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA. Chair Ziebelman, in her statement, laid out Governor Cuomo's key energy initiatives, including reforming the energy vision and the clean energy standard. I will pick up with a discussion of NYSERDA's 10-year, $5 billion Clean Energy Fund. The Clean Energy Fund will support these initiatives. It will support the nation-leading clean energy standard by accelerating the adoption of energy efficiency to reduce the demand for electricity while increasing renewable energy to meet that demand. He will support REV with a focus on 4 primary outcomes: reducing greenhouse gas emissions, mobilizing private sector capital, achieving energy savings, and achieving customer energy bill savings. The Clean Energy Fund consists of 4 portfolios: market development, innovation and research, New York Sun, and New York Green Bank. Market development is focused on reducing costs and accelerating the uptake of energy-saving, energy efficiency, and cost-effective behind-the-meter solutions, such as storage, while increasing private investment levels. Market development also specifically supports programs that provide benefit to low to moderate income households, including a commitment of at least $230 million over the first 3 years of the Clean Energy Fund. The innovation and research portfolio drives clean business growth across 5 key areas: smart grid technology, renewables, high-performance buildings, transportation, and clean tech startup, to meet the increasing demand for clean energy and to bring new economic development to New York State. New York Sun, the governor's $1 billion commitment to solar, creates a self-sustaining solar power market in New York, reducing and ultimately eliminating incentives as the industry builds to scale. New York Sun is an example of REV in action. Under Governor Cuomo, solar deployed in New York has grown 300% through 2014. More than 7,200 New Yorkers worked in the solar industry in 2014, an increase of more than 2,000 jobs from 2013. Our strategies are working. New York Green Bank, the largest green bank in the nation, works to leverage private sector capital into clean energy. To date, the Green Bank has received over $1 billion in investment proposals and has an active pipeline of roughly, I need to correct this, $400 million. In 2015, New York Green Bank closed $54 million in commitments in 4 high-impact, first-of-their-kind deals. These deals leverage private capital at a rate of up to 5-to-1, and we anticipate ultimate leverage as high as 8-to-1. The Clean Energy Fund portfolio is needed to achieve better greenhouse gas, energy, and bill savings, and by doing more with less. I recall Chair Ziebelman's points. $91 million in ratepayer collection reductions in 2016, a total of $1.5 billion in ratepayer reductions by 2025, $39 billion in lifetime energy bill savings, and $29 billion in private capital leverage over the lifetime of the Clean Energy Fund. NYSERDA continues to streamline operations to become easier to work with. Applications for residential solar, a single highest volume program, are now approved within 3 days, down from 28 days. We've cut the cycle time for other processes by 50%, up to 2/3. An application by a homeowner to receive a free audit can now be completed online, and by a typical homeowner in less than 5 minutes. Now to the executive budget. For nearly 4 decades, NYSERDA has protected New York State interests at the West Valley Demonstration Project in Cattaraugus County. The 2016 executive budget recommends $13.5 million for ongoing nuclear waste cleanup work at West Valley, an increase of about $900,000 over last year's budget. Our costs at West Valley are largely dictated by a federal match requirement, and this amount reflects the funding level necessary to match the federal appropriation during the 2016 federal fiscal year. The 2016 executive budget provides $19.7 million in funding for NYSERDA to continue energy research and development and statewide energy planning and analysis activities. As a public benefit corporation, NYSERDA understands the importance of full disclosure of its investments made on behalf of the public and for transparency and oversight. NYSERDA has built a robust reporting regime that reflects existing legislative, administrative, and regulatory requirements, including fiscal year-end annual financial statements, annual budget and financial plan, Green Jobs Green New York annual report, quarterly program progress reports, and significant reporting to the authority's budget office. NYSERDA works on periodic audits with the State Controller's Office, and findings from these audits are made public and provide valuable insight toward improving our procedures and internal controls. Further, the new semi-annual reports that were included as part of last year's budget provide for more frequent and detailed reporting with regional breakdowns by county and utility service territory for solicitations, for awards, for expenditures, and for commitments. Clean, affordable, and reliable energy system is essential to the health of New York State's economy and to our environment. We have the global talent, we have the natural resources, the global financial markets, and a history of innovation, all based here. And under Governor Cuomo, we are putting those resources to work today. This concludes my opening remarks. I would be happy to continue to take questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from senators? Senator Little?
Yes. I think
Oh, wait, no, the Assembly did, it is your turn. Yes.
being moved right, I'm sorry. Lefton Assemblywoman Lipton.
Get that on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Ms. Ziebelman, is that correct? I've heard, I keep...
Zibelman or Ziebelman?
Ziebelman.
I respond to just about
I'm
anything.
a former English teacher. I always want to try to get the pronunciation right. Ziebelman. Welcome, and to Mr. Rhodes. I'm thrilled to hear the discussion about energy efficiency, reducing demand, the importance of our environmental goals. As you know, I've called for the closure of the coal plants and not repowering with natural gas. You know, New Yorkers beat back fracking and said, you know, for a number of reasons, many, many reasons, but certainly with concerns about the methane, the fugitive methane, that's a tremendous contributor to climate change, as we now know, and the numbers on that just keep getting more powerful. And of course, Paris has said we really have to get even more conservative than we were in our original estimates. 1.5 is maybe all we can risk in terms of rising global temperatures, and we're at what, 0.8 now, getting close to 1. So the crisis is upon us. As you talk about using the NYSERDA money, I'm not sure. You looked at the plan, NYSERDA did the plan. You've got 4 different portfolios on the use of the Clean Energy Fund. I think the experts say the best thing we could do is just energy efficiency, period. Let's get the demand down. Let's retrofit all the homes and businesses, and we get the biggest bang for our buck that way. When we spend $1 million or $1 billion, if we were going to try to reduce greenhouse gases as quickly as possible and clean up the carbon, the best thing to do is decreasing demand, energy conservation. Am I right about that?
I bow to no person in my admiration for energy efficiency. It really is a fantastic resource.
So as we have these various portfolios, is it weighted in any way to say, you know, people say solar is the last thing that people ought to do in their homes. They ought to do the retrofitting, they ought to, you know, all the other things come later in terms of being efficient with money. You talked about, Ms. Ziebelman said, maximizing value, right, for the dollar. So if we're going to maximize value, we want to reduce the most with the least expenditure, right?
Right.
So are we going to weight this in terms of saying let's get houses, let's get businesses retrofitted and bring down demand?